Hiya. In this post, I'm going to run through just some of the key things that I look at to verify the viability of a product. So I've had this idea floating around in my head for quite some time, and I was really pleased to get it down as a blog post. So if you like this video, please go and check out the blog post, as it's a lot more detailed and it gives a lot more explanation behind all these things. So my first criteria for any product or project is demand. I mean, what's the point of trying to sell something that one or two people want? It's pointless. So, I mean, something like e-commerce is pretty easy to verify demand. You can go and buy some software and it just sort of plugs the numbers in front of you. Selling something like a digital course, it's a little bit more difficult, but there's still things you can go and do to get some early stage ideas. You know, Google AdWords is a great place to start. It's a free tool, and you can get monthly search volume for different regions of the globe depending on where you're launching. Also, for these kinds of things, pre-sales are really good. You know, it takes a subjective idea that might be in your mind, like my dog grooming course is going to be fantastic because everybody likes dogs, and then makes it objective. My dog grooming course will, you know, has achieved 10 pre-sales in 2 weeks or whatever. So that, you know, that helps you verify that there actually is demand there. Real estate development, similar. You can go and look at like average days on market, tenancy rates, you know, tenancy vacancy rates, infrastructure development approvals in the area. Speak to agents. There's a number of different things you can do. So the bottom line is just make sure that you can verify there actually is demand, depending on your industry, depending on how you go about doing this. But yeah, you need someone to buy your product. That's number one. Okay, so obviously after demand, we've got to back that up with supply. So who are the other competitors in the market? Are there lots of competitors? Are there not many? Be careful if there's absolutely none. This might be a sign of weak demand, but not always. It might be an opportunity that you can take the market by storm. Okay, so after supply and demand, we've got point of difference. This is vitally important. Doesn't matter if it's e-commerce, you're developing real estate, even purchasing real estate for an investment, because probably at one day you're going to want to sell it. You know, brick and mortar, doesn't matter, even service industries or digital products. You have to have a point of difference. This is vitally important. You know, in e-commerce, it can be, you know, on lower end items. It may only cost a few cents to get something just a little bit extra, give the customer something for free. Because why is the customer going to buy the second best item? You know, there are examples where, you know, these people have got, you know, fantastic marketing and they can get away with it. But you really want to distinguish yourself from the competition. You need to have a better service. It needs to be fundamentally better competitor, and this goes for service industries and everything. So you really need to distinguish a strong point of difference, and it can't be some floozy thing like, oh, I'm going to be nicer and all. It genuinely has to be a hard point of difference that you can write out in your business plan about why it's genuinely better than the competition. But yeah, once you've got that, it makes it a lot easier, you know. So sales channel, what sales channel are we going to use? Is it going to be e-commerce, brick and mortar? You know, there's a raft of channels we can use. I better be quick here, I'm just about to get rained on. I've spoken to brick and mortar retailers before, and they've thought about launching existing products on Amazon, and I've done some research for them and said, listen, like, there's a lot of competition here. The existing sellers on here already have, you know, say 100 reviews. And for those who don't know, reviews online are basically a really strong gauge of the competition. And the answer I always get back in return is, oh, well, that's easy. I'll just go and get 100 reviews. This not that easy, speaking from experience. You know, these people that have 100 reviews, if it was that easy, might have 1,000 reviews, for example. So you really have to, the point I'm trying to make is you really need to know your sales channel. Don't just go and say, oh, I'll get 100 reviews, that's no problem. It is a lot more challenging than that. And vice versa for, you know, us e-commerce guys, we may not know exactly how to run a brick and mortar shop. You know, perhaps our personable customer service skills won't be up to scratch. You know, each sales channel has its own idiosyncrasies and things that you need to be aware of. So just really do your research when you're looking at your sales channels, and just be careful about it. And there it comes now. That's the tropical rain for you. I better go inside. Okay, so I waited a minute and finally the rain has gone away so I can finish it off. The next one is seasonality. Is your product or service going to give you year-round income? You know, if we buy a piece of real estate, whether it be commercial, residential, whatever, you know, as long as we maintain a tenant, it's going to give us year-round income. Something like Christmas wrapping paper will not, you know. Christmas wrapping paper is not very valuable or sought after in January or February. So, I mean, that's not to say that we shouldn't go into seasonal goods, but just be careful. If you're expecting to get year-round income from something, just really do your due diligence and check that you actually are. I've seen a number of products that I was looking at launching on Amazon, and then have later found out, you know, once I've done a little bit more research, that I actually were surprisingly seasonal. Just on that though, like, if you're experienced and you know your marketplace, seasonal products can be great. There's a lot of blokes out there making huge money in the Christmas rush. They just fill a niche, you know, do 1 or 2 rounds of stock and bang, they can make some really good money. Yeah, just be mindful of that. The quickest way of figuring this out is just Google search volume. So go to Google Trends, type in your, what we call a keyword, or just basically whatever your product or service is, type that in. I generally go to get as much data as possible, so try and get 5 years of data, and then you can correspond that with the month. And if it is very seasonal, you'll see like a graph like this appear. You know, every Christmas time it'll peak, and then in the middle of the year you'll have a trough. But then, you know, if it's not seasonal and it's pretty consistent year round, you'll kind of just see a little bit of a waver in the graph like that, and your search volume will be quite consistent. So the next part I want to talk about is profitability. I've outlined a number of metrics in the blog. I've got net represented as a percentage and also a dollar value, gross, and then also return on investment. I think there's a lot of confusion between net margin percentage and ROI. I go into this in detail in the blog, but I don't think this video format is the best way to express it. So if you are interested, please go and read that. Because I really think there's a lot of confusion out there between some of these metrics. I've actually done quite a detailed explanation of it and why it becomes important. Especially, I've done a section specifically relating to Amazon sellers and why ROI and net are both important for different reasons. So yeah, please go and check that out. There's a lot of information in that section. Market cycles is also very important too. You know, at the start of a new industry, or you know, the start of a bull market in, you know, conventional industries like the share market or real estate, there's a lot of opportunity because, you know, it's only the early adopters in there. Most people haven't figured out this industry is on the up. Take Amazon for example. Before it's you know, in the early days of FBA, there was a lot more opportunity there because it was only the early adopters there. The masses hadn't figured it out yet. Now it's a lot more competitive. By the same token, I'm not saying it's impossible to make money. There's still, of course, money to be made, but it's just a more competitive marketplace. You just have to do a better job. You take this into the property market, for example. At the start of a bull market, there's plenty of opportunity to, you know, pick up development blocks, but for example, take Australia over the last 10 years, this began getting less and less and less opportunity to find development blocks. It's actually very competitive now, to the point where a lot of the deals are going straight to established real estate developers before they actually hit the market. So yeah, the start of a cycle, the start of a new industry, there's always a lot of opportunity, and that peters out. But yeah, I mean, just look at the industry or the spot in the cycle it is, and try and determine, you know, how much opportunity you think there is left. So price point, this is very important. You know, don't ever compete on price, no matter what. The only exception that you may want to compete on price is if you have a new technology for some reason and you can do something for, you know, 10% of the price of conventional methods. Just another one on price. Be realistic, be honest, and don't get emotional about price. When people are selling their own homes, this becomes very obvious. You know, the couple might think, oh, you know, this is a beautiful house. Look at all these features that we've got. Realistically, it's no different to the house 2 doors down. Be honest about what you've got, because you really, in e-commerce, you need to really know your margins. It's very important. Don't, when you're sourcing a product, you might have put a lot of hard work into it. Don't find an outlier that's worth 50% more than the rest of them for no real reason and say, oh, well, this guy's selling a few units. That's not realistic. Look at the data. If you're having trouble being objective about it, get a friend and say, show them yours and don't tell them, and then have a look at a competitor and say, give them the prices, and they say, how much would you pay for these, or which one would you buy, and get some data to back that up. Because if you can't distinguish a good price point for your product, it's really not going to be as profitable as it probably could be. The last point I want to touch on is risk. Cap your downside, and I'm sure you've all heard that before. It's just vitally important. On that too, and when you're looking at products, sometimes you'll look at products that have a great ROI, and they're a higher end product. So every time you make a sale, it's going to, you're going to get a lot more money out of it. But perhaps to buy the initial stock is going to be very expensive, and this might put you in a tricky position if you don't end up selling all the stock. So don't get caught up in the shiny object syndrome and think, oh, if we just make this one big win, everything's going to be easy after that. That's not how life works. So more work on smaller, more manageable things, and then if you can, really work on minimizing your downside. So with a smaller outlay, you've got less to lose. But if done right, it can have just the upside. You can choose just as profitable product that's going to cost you a lot less money to start off with, thus less risk. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard the example about when Richard Branson started Virgin Airlines. He orchestrated a deal with Boeing at the time that it gave him the ability to give the aircraft back for a full refund at the end of 12 months if the project wasn't viable. In a more relatable scenario, doing call options on real estate is great. These are only going to cost you a couple of grand to get sorted. If you don't know what it is, please just look it up, and you might find a great opportunity there for yourself. But the upside is huge. You can if everything goes to plan, you can on-sell it on in 6, 12 months, whatever. But the maximum you can lose is a couple of grand. So another great way for minimizing risk with e-commerce is pre-sales. If you've got a digital or physical product, maybe an online course or something like this, but you're really not sure if it's going to sell, you can actually pre-sell it before you make it or before you make an order. And then that way, if you can get X amount of pre-sales in a month, then you can say, oh, yay or nay, is this a good deal? And then you can take appropriate action. One for service industries is building a blog or something like that to gain credibility before you actually start offering a service. So thanks very much for sticking around, guys. I've had this on my mind for ages. If you'd like more details, I've gone a lot further into this in the blog post. There's a lot there, so please dig through it and find out what you find useful. Everyone's going to take a little bit of different information away from it. But thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you next time. See you guys.